Hello and welcome to the New Era podcast with me, Jeffrey Peel. David Kurten is leader of the Heritage Party and has been a very vocal supporter of freedom and human liberty since the government imposed lockdowns in 2020. David is also the only UK party leader from the right to take a strong stand against Zionism and the Israeli attacks on the people of Gaza. I took the opportunity to ask David about his views on subjects as diverse as the Chagos Islands, the Mandelson debacle, Reform Party shenanigans, and the upcoming Heritage Party conference on September the 20th.
The vote happened during the week on the Chagos, the second reading, really, of the bill proposing that the United Kingdom essentially gives away sovereign territory to Mauritius and rents back its military base. What's your view on this whole Chagos Islands deal? It seems absolutely remarkable that the United Kingdom is essentially giving away our assets and paying for the privilege.
The whole thing is ridiculous. The whole thing is completely inconceivable. I mean, nobody in their right mind would come up with such a scheme. There's no need to even cede these islands as territory. I mean, they're 1,000 miles away from the rest of Mauritius. They've never been part of Mauritius. I mean, maybe back in the days of the British Empire, they were both in the British Empire, but then Mauritius has been claiming them since the 1960s. But they've got no actual reasonable, grounds for a claim on this territory. The people that we should be giving these islands back to are the Chagosians, who we forced off. I mean, not you and me, but the British government of the day and the Ministry of Defence back in the 1960s treated the Chagosians absolutely dreadfully and terribly. And, now some of them are living in England, in council government accommodation. They're not happy. They should be allowed the right to return to their own islands. That's who we should be giving them back to. But, the idea that we're going to give something away and then we're going to pay the people we're giving it to, and not just a small amount, is over 100 million a year to rent back the military base, which we already have in our control. The whole thing is utterly ridiculous. And it's, the people in Parliament that voted for it this week, I understand there was a big majority to vote for this to happen, mainly Labour MPs, who should know better. The whole thing is just unconscionable.
It reeks, doesn't it? It totally reeks. Here are brown envelopes being exchanged, because that's the only sort of conspiracy theory that you could come up with, because no one in their right mind from the world of business can get their head around why it is that we're just giving away our assets and leasing them back in return. Like, it's utter madness, and no one seems to be raising any objections. But of course, that's the nature of the Uniparty, isn't it? They make they issue a few tweets, and that's the extent of it. There is no real parliamentary discussion and debate regarding these absolutely ludicrous, crazy, insane decisions that are being reached by our supposedly sovereign parliament.
Yeah, well, in a deal, you usually go for win-win. But they've obviously gone for lose-win. We lose, they win big. So someone in Mauritius is very, very happy. They're going to get a lot of money. The people are going to have to pay no tax for a very long time, because we're going to be paying Mauritius all of this money, which is going to allow them to develop their country and their economy. So someone in Mauritius is very happy. Now, if you looked into it, I don't know, maybe you would find links between people in the Mauritian government and the Parliament here in the UK. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there were some links through back channels in that way. But someone is winning, but the British taxpayer is losing. And, this whole thing needs to be stopped. Hopefully there's still one chance left. Donald Trump might come in and say, well, no, we're going to block that because we have some say in what happens with this military base, because I believe it's a joint UK-US military base in Diego Garcia. So he might stop it. But, government we've got now is just completely ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just nonsense.
Now you've got your party conference coming up at
Yeah.
the weekend. What do you think are going to be the big sort of the big topics, the big discussion areas, and your keynote speakers? What are they going to be talking around in terms of that
Yeah. Well,
incompetent,
yeah, thanks,
corrupt
Jeffrey.
administration?
Yeah, it's Saturday, 20th of September, so it's a week and a half
Oh,
from
sorry,
August. Yeah,
my
so
mistake. Yeah.
no worries. 20th of September. It's going to be in Newport in Wales. So one of the things we want to do is launch our election campaigns for 2026. There's elections in the Welsh Senedd, so we're having it in in Wales this year for the first time. We've had our conferences previously all in England. So, but that's good. But we're obviously going to be thinking about the Scottish Parliament and English local council elections too in 2026. So that's exciting. We got amazing speakers. I mean, I'm speaking in the morning. The other people in the morning, I'll just tell you, there's Jason Barker, who was on the film The Agenda, which was all about Agenda
Mm.
2030 by
Mhm.
Oracle Films. And he's an activist. He's fighting the construction of 300-meter wind turbines in the mountains of rural Wales. And I hope he succeeds in stopping that. But there's insane schemes to put up these turbines and solar panels all over the place, which are destructive to
Something
agriculture.
on that though. It's interesting. There, I saw a post on LinkedIn recently, and it was apparently some scientists had done some work on why it was that these windmills were killing so many birds. And the solution that they came up with was that if they painted one of the fins in black, less birds would be killed. So this was on LinkedIn, and I just commented off the cuff. Well, maybe the easiest solution and cheapest solution would be not to put them up in the first place.
Right.
But the interesting thing was that I got a huge amount of likes and reposts and so on for that comment. But also, I read down, and every single comment was saying these things are an environmental disaster. They shouldn't be erected in the first place. Why are we putting all of this money and all of these resources into these things that have to be repurposed and rebuilt in what, 10, 15 years? So it does seem ludicrous that they're putting them up in some of the most beautiful parts of the world, including rural Wales.
Well, I mean, this relates to the last thing we were talking about, the Chagos Islands. I mean, this is another money laundering scheme. This is another scheme to get government money in the pockets of people who are going to benefit from doing something which is not just useless, but absolutely destructive. You know, the people who are owning businesses that put up wind turbines and, construct solar arrays all over the countryside. They're doing things that would not survive for a day on the open free market. They can only do this with massive amounts of taxpayer subsidies, and they're paid to do this. The concrete itself that is used just for the base of one wind turbine, it's like would actually use up all the carbon dioxide that they say they're going to save. If you believe that, I don't believe carbon dioxide is harmful, but that's the premise on which it's all being done. But these things now, I mean, the ones we've seen up to a couple of years ago are 100 meters high. They're high enough and destructive enough, but some of these new ones are 300 meters. They're as tall as the Eiffel Tower when the blade is stretched upwards. So what you're saying on your LinkedIn, I mean, there's a lot of rubbish on social media, but your post about let's just not put them up in the first place, I think is absolutely right. And so many people are seeing through this now. They know it's a waste of money. They know it doesn't provide energy. They know it actually makes our energy costs and prices go up. And they know it's destructive to farmland. They're damn ugly, and they kill birds. And the solar panels, they leach metals into the soil. Obviously, that destroys agricultural land. So everyone can see how destructive they are now. And we need to get back to coal, oil, gas, nuclear, which are the things that work and provide us energy at the moment. If new technologies come up in the future, if nuclear fusion is developed, if thorium fission is developed, if zero-point energy is developed, great. Some of these things may happen in the next few decades. Some of them may, it's pie in the sky. But, if people find other ways which are not harmful, great. But until we do, we need carbon-based energy and nuclear to be the mainstay of our electricity production.
I would imagine your conference and the delegates at the conference will be discussing the trouble at mill in the Reform Party. Obviously, the media is presenting the Reform Party as the next government. I remember, years ago, it was impossible to get breakthrough on the media if you were a small party, because they would use the Representation of the People Act, as the excuse why small parties couldn't get coverage. But of course, now the Reform Party is, how many MPs does it still have in the House of Commons?
4, I think, yeah.
And yet they are positioned, and Farage is positioned as the next Prime Minister, and Reform is positioned as the next governing party. And obviously that must present frustrations to you, given the fact that breakthrough has been impossible. There's been an absolute embargo against you getting any visibility at all, despite having been working on the ground for a hell of a long time, getting members and activists involved and contesting elections.
What the media is doing is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, I've never known them actually promote a party so heavily, so early on in an election cycle. I mean, it's almost since the election was over last year, they started promoting Reform as the next party of government and Nigel Farage as the next Prime Minister, when the next election is not for another 5 years as it was then, or 4 years as it is now. And they've got basically 24/7 coverage in all the television stations, in all the newspapers. There's not a day go by where I don't see some story about Reform, Farage, or one of their MPs or councillors. But the thing is, they don't have any principles. They have some policies. They don't have a manifesto, but they seem to change their policies from day to day on the hoof when they say something, and then they realize, oh, people don't like that, I'm going to say something else. And then they contradict themselves between the people on their frontline team, Farage says something, Tice says something else, Sarah Potchin says something else. So it is very frustrating because I've been running the Heritage Party since 2020. Our conference is going to be our 5th anniversary. We have a full manifesto, which is very well thought out and coherent, and it's based on principles. I mean, we started with principles, which are positive, which are the things we need to restore our nation, like traditional family values, a culture of life, equality before the law, low immigration, self-sufficiency in skills, national sovereignty, and many other things. Those are our principles, and all of our policies hang on them. But we've developed the manifesto now. I've just written a new updated manifesto, which is 60 pages long, and it talks about everything that we can think of to answer every question that people might have. And we don't get any attention at all. I mean, even GB News, I used to go on GB News, but I've been cancelled from there. The last time I was on was in January. So that was 9 months ago, and that I haven't been on since then. So obviously they don't want me on for a variety of reasons. So it is frustrating, but we have fantastic members, fantastic activists. We've got 10 councillors at town and parish level who are doing an amazing job in challenging the climate agenda, the woke agenda, the migration agenda on a very local level. And we would just, I think we built the foundations. We just need more members, more money, more manpower. And I think we're the solution the country needs. So I hope that despite the frustration of being ignored largely by the media and the mainstream media, that people will start to realize, that we're the party to come and join, who are going to, tell you things and say things which Reform will never do, because they don't really know what they stand for.
On that subject, Reform not knowing what it stands for, obviously Ben Habib has now formed his own political party. He has announced that he has had 30,000 members join, so much so that he's going to go and register the company as a proper political party. But interestingly, he's also had the support of Elon Musk. Now, I recently wrote a post on the New Era about Farage's proximity to the so-called technocrats, the people like Peter Thiel and the JD Vance wing of the of MAGA. But of course, Ben Habib now, in launching his own party, has very much relied on the support of Elon Musk. There's some degree of hypocrisy there, but also when I interviewed him recently, I don't know if you've seen the interview, but he was a bit vague as to how he was delineating advance from reform. I didn't quite understand what it was the proposition was, for advance vis-a-vis reform. What's your view?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been running a party now for 5 years, and I've seen 5, 6, 7 times people have started other things which are similar to what we're doing in the Heritage Party, but not quite the same. But none of them have got any foundational principles and policies. I mean, I look at Advance, it's very disappointing that he started his own thing. I did reach out to him and, see if we could work together, but I haven't, didn't get any positive response there, which is disappointing. And then he's, gone on and started an organization, but again, it doesn't seem to have any policies. There's no manifesto there. There's no principles there. It's just, okay, well, he says a few things and he says we're a bit like reform, but we're not reform. And he's obviously, as well as Elon Musk, he's very much tied up with Tommy Robinson as well, and maybe speaking at this big rally in London on Saturday, after the time of making this video. So, I'm not involved in that at all. I think, Tommy Robinson is clearly, Zionist, and I don't agree with that side of things at all. I think we need, on the right, to call for a ceasefire and actually call out what the nation of Israel is doing to Gaza. And I think that, that's one thing that we will do. But I think, these people also, with the Peter Thiel, Elon Musk side of things, they're very much, support the nation of Israel and Zionism as well. So as well as being for technocracy and surveillance and digital ID and all these kind of things. The Heritage Party is very clear. We have been from the beginning. It's in our manifesto. We're for freedom, we're for privacy, we're against surveillance, we're against CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, we're against digital ID, we were against vaccine passports back in the day, we're against facial recognition technology. That's very, very clear, and you're not going to get that from any other party. You ask Reform or Advance what they stand for, you probably will get a vague answer, or you may get 3 or 4 completely different answers from completely different people because they don't know where they stand on these issues. So, there's a clear difference there in terms of freedom and privacy and keeping cash and keeping our freedom. The Heritage Party knows where we stand on those things, and we support freedom.
On the subject of technocracy and the technocrats and the PayPal guys, they obviously did have a degree of proximity to Jeffrey Epstein. And of course, now it's coming out that our own ambassador to the United States was a bosom buddy and wrote love letters to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, it's slightly disappointing that the Trump administration wants to make the Epstein saga conflate with, a Democrat conspiracy. What's your view on Mandelson being appointed in the first place? Because many of us knew that he had these weird links to Jeffrey Epstein, and thereby, obviously having potential links to intelligence assets running amok across the international business community. What's your view, and how on earth did he get that role, and how will he retain it, knowing what most people know now about his back catalogue?
Yeah, well, I said when he was appointed or before he was appointed, there's no way that this person, Peter Mandelson, should be the UK ambassador to the United States. He shouldn't have any position anywhere near government. But of course, the Labour Party is in government, the Starmer regime, so they're going to appoint one of their own to this, plum role, this plum job. It's a very nice job and post. So of course they're going to put one of their own people in there. But now this has come out, and more information has come out about his links with Jeffrey Epstein. We knew that at the time, but more embarrassing information has come out. Hopefully this will be enough to get him removed from that post, because it's in my view, it's untenable. But yeah, the other part of the question.
I was just going to say, it does reek, though, of being so cack-handed that it's barely believable, first of all, that he's appointed to that role. And secondly, now that it's all coming out, it does seem that there's almost I have no sympathy with the Labour administration at all, but it's so ridiculously incompetent that no one could, appoint somebody like Mandelson and not think that this wouldn't all come out, because particularly amongst the alternative media, this has been in common parlance, this whole the Mandelson Epstein link for so long that it just seems beyond incompetent that they would have appointed him.
Well, this is consistent with what this regime, I call it a regime, the Starmer regime, has been doing since they got in power. I mean, this is not just one thing. There's 50 different things that they've done, which is, any one of them on their own might be considered to be incompetent, just a mistake. But time after time after time, they've done things which are, beyond incompetence. This is deliberate. They're deliberately doing things which are there to undermine our reputation, to undermine our integrity, to degenerate the nation, to put degenerate people in positions of power, or people who are not very bright, people who are corrupt and or not completely honest. I mean, we've had Angela Rayner last week, just a few days before this has come out about Jeffrey Epstein. Before then there was the homeless minister who had to the housing minister had to resign because she kicked some tenants out of her house and made them homeless in order to raise the rent. And you got the Solicitor General who wasn't a solicitor, and it goes on and on and on. And that's just individual people. But then when it comes to their policy, they're hurting farmers, they're hurting private schools, they're hurting pensioners, they're hurting small businesses and employers. They're spaffing money out of the door on climate schemes in Africa. The list goes on and on and on. So I think this is deliberate. They're actually, someone is just having a laugh at our expense, just undermining the nation and doing everything that they possibly can to bring us to destruction. This is the only conclusion you can come to, and they need to be gone.
Which does beg the question, maybe there is a degree, given the fact that it is the uniparty, and it sometimes feels that it's not about parliamentary democracy, it's not about contesting elections, it is about succession planning. Which brand of the uniparty, which sub-brand of the uniparty do you want next? And of course the media then defines that for us, gives us the answer very, very quickly, and any dissent is totally cancelled. Given that, how do you maintain momentum? How do you continue to have enthusiasm, given the fact that there does seem to be a closed shop, and that you ain't going to be given your union card anytime soon?
Yeah, look, it is difficult. And that there's a huge psychological operation. There's nudging that goes on. Half the things you see in the mainstream media are there in order to not to report on things that have actually happened objectively, but to try to manipulate your feelings, emotions, thoughts, and opinions. That's what the mainstream media does. Maybe more than half the time, maybe nearly 100% of the time. That's what they're doing. So clearly, before the election, they were saying, the Tories are going out, Labour are coming in. Now they're immediately saying Reform are next. They're the next party. And of course, we can very clearly see that Reform are essentially a Tory pressure valve. I mean, apart from Farage himself, almost everybody there around him was in the Tory party until like a week ago or a month ago or a year ago. It is the Tory party 2.0 essentially. So they're clearly part of the Uniparty. It's just another ruse in order to get people to support them, and then they will carry on with a neoliberal program, the program of war, the program of the classic liberal program, which is like, okay, we're slightly anti-woke in that we don't like transgenderism and we don't like Islam, but we'll support abortion, they'll support gay marriage, they'll support legal migration in the hundreds of thousands, but we'll talk about illegal migration. Okay, well, all of those things are important, not just the half of the things that they say are palatable and they're going to focus on. So it's very difficult for me leading the Heritage Party as a challenger party, but I think that although we need more members, obviously, but we don't have them at the moment. But a lot of people really respect the Heritage Party because, people come up to me all the time and say, I love your manifesto. It's the only party I agree with everything in, because the manifesto is based on Christian principles. Although we're not specifically a Christian party, everyone can join. But those are the things we need for our country. And, it's difficult. People are not ready maybe to get involved in politics, but we're respected because we've been consistent, and we've been consistent in our policies, our message, and our principles since we started the party. Well, since I was the founder, obviously 5 years ago, and even before then, when I was on the London Assembly for 5 years, I started the Heritage Party towards the end of my time. But even before I started, my principles and what I would say has been consistent over 10 years of being in politics. So people know that, and they know with the Heritage Party, exactly what we stand for, and it's all written in a 60-page manifesto, which is comprehensive, and it's out there. And even if we are not in a position of power at the moment, people look at what we say and they pick up our talking points, and some people adopt some of our policy, and then we do change things just by having our principles out there. But ultimately, I don't just want to be influencing other people. I want to be in a position where our Heritage Party candidates can get into Parliament and make a difference. So we just soldier on. And
absolutely, indeed, and that's the only option we have. So your party conference is a week on Saturday. People who maybe know of you and support your policies and support you, because you are a stalwart, it's just incredible how you keep going. I would have given up long ago. But what do people have to do in order to maybe attend if they're not yet members of the party, or even if they're just maybe kicking cans and would like to find out a bit more about you and might want to attend the conference? What do they need to do?
Yes, so the link to buy tickets and more information on the conference is on our website, heritageparty.org. It's on the homepage. So just look on there and click on the button that says get conference tickets, and then you go to the page. We're selling them on Eventbrite. It tells you all the speakers and information about it there. It's in Newport in Wales, so it's just over the border from England, so easy to get to, near the M4. Tickets are on discount for members, but you can come as a non-member as well. So if you're a non-member, you can buy a ticket as well, but the members get a discount on tickets. The tickets do include a buffet lunch as well, and coffee and tea all day.
Tories don't give you that.
Yeah. Well, I looked at the prices of tickets of other parties. I think the Tory conference coming up, it's £250 for 4 days or 3 days, whatever. So that's like, £65 a day. And there's no coffee, tea, or lunch. Ours is £35, and you get lunch, and you get coffee and tea all day, and you get amazing speakers. Other people coming. I didn't mention Isabel Vaughan Spruce is coming to speak. She was the lady who got arrested for silently praying in her head outside an abortion center. So I'm really delighted that she's coming to talk about pro-life issues and free speech. Kate Shemirani is coming, who spoke at the freedom rallies in London 5 years ago in Trafalgar Square to stand up against lockdowns and coerced injections. You got Kim Isherwood, who's doing a great job in fighting comprehensive sexuality education in schools, which is another issue that goes on. It's been going on for
just on that, a call out to the DUP in Northern Ireland for scrapping these requirements in the Northern Ireland education curriculum. So
fantastic.
The first home nation to scrap this ludicrous nonsense that's creeping into the curriculum.
But that really is good news that's been scrapped in Northern Ireland. But, we need to scrap it in England, Scotland, and Wales
absolutely.
as well. Yeah, so we continue the fight. And, the Heritage Party was the first party to oppose this when everyone else was afraid to, because, 5 years ago, nobody wanted to offend Stonewall or mermaids or transgenders. They were scared to say anything about LGBT, but I just went ahead and said, this is wrong, and I got pilloried for this in the London Assembly back in the day. I had, numerous hit pieces against me in Pink News and these other gay papers. So you can look back 5, 6, 7 years ago and see all of this stuff. Now other people are starting to talk about it, but we have opposed this from the very beginning, because kids should just be left to be kids. Children should be children. Anyone who wants to sexualize children is a deviant pervert, and they got no place in our schools. They need to be kicked out of our schools.
And a call out to my good friend and former head teacher, Hugh McCarthy, who's worked diligently to ensure that the Department of Education has made this statement relating to these absurd proposals relating to gender instruction in schools. So, David, I just want to say thank you very much indeed for taking the time, and I wish you all success for your conference. I'm sure you'll have lots of interesting debates and discussions and presentations from the keynote speakers. And I'll put up a link to the Heritage Party down there so that people can buy tickets, whether they're members or not. So thank you very much indeed for joining me.